Good morning, everyone. We're here for the July 1st DRC meeting. We have one pre-app on the agenda for the Brooker Creek Mitigation Bank of Tarpon Woods. So what we'd like to do is have start with a narrative, just kind of an explanation for anyone who doesn't understand or is familiar with the project.
Intro.
We can do intros, yeah. Frank, why don't you start with
I'm Clint McWilliams with the Project Management Department.
and Gwen Basho, Project Management.
Cliff Steele, DRS Environmental.
Dane Morris, DRS Engineering.
Lisa Foster, Floodplain Management, Public Works.
Michael Shutterbach, Division Manager, Zoning and Project Management.
Molly Cord, DRS Zoning.
Daniel Sutton, Building Department.
Good morning, Katie Cole with Law Firm Howard Henderson representing the applicant.
Lisa Cartwright, Green Source Environmental Professionals.
Ron Dodler, Green Source Environmental.
My name is Jesus Murley. I'm the civil engineer for the project.
Yeah, I'm Tom Rogers. I'm here on something else. I didn't know I had to be on the agenda.
We only had one thing on the agenda. What were you here for?
Well, I have an appointment for Wednesday, but it was important to me. I get denied on a habitat permit for lack of a plane on Friday, and I just want to, that's why I was coming up here. But then I saw this meeting, I thought, maybe I could jump
Yeah,
ahead of
this is
Wednesday.
like a recorded meeting that only has one thing on the agenda. We'd be able to help, someone would be able to help you at the front desk.
Okay.
Get you to talk to someone in Habitat.
Okay, that'll work.
Yeah,
That'll work for me.
no problem. Yeah, Chris is at the front desk. If you want to talk to her. Thank you. All right. Yeah. All right, so if you could please start with the narrative of the project.
I can give an overview of the project. If you'd like to hear this. The Tarpon Woods golf course, the purpose of the project is to establish a wetland mitigation bank. There's a shortage of credits in the Tampa Bay Basin. There's a shortage of wetland mitigation credits in the Tampa Bay Basin, and we've identified this project as having the potential to provide that mitigation. The design effectively is to restore the golf course back to native habitat, wetland and upland habitat, upland buffer habitat. Brooker Creek runs right through the middle of the golf course. There's conservation land to the north and to the south, so it provides a corridor between existing conservation lands. Along our restoration plan involves incorporating the features that are on the golf course into a comprehensive wetland restoration design that would wind up cleaning the water that eventually leads through Brooker Creek into Lake Tarpon. So it helps with the water quality of Lake Tarpon. It would maintain the same storage or increase the storage capacity for the effluent, the wastewater that's being discharged on the project. It would increase the flood zone storage, and it would increase the water treatment, the water flowing through the ponds that are out there, because there's going to be an enlarged wetland system. And it will obviously increase the amount of natural habitat, both wetland and upland, that would provide wildlife habitat, species diversity for plants, and associated benefits that come along with the wetland mitigation bank. The site would be restored. It would be, we would be getting a permit with Southwest Florida Water Management District as well. It would be restored, it would be monitored, and it would be maintained in perpetuity through the mechanisms that we have set up with the wetland mitigation bank. There would be, it would be managed by the applicant or their designees forever as permanently protected wildlife habitat. So benefits all around for the county and the people in the surrounding area.
Thank you. There's a lot of comments, there's a lot of information here, so we can start with zoning, Michael, if that's where you want to start, or?
Sure. Yeah, we
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Just a bigger
Yes.
picture question. I apologize, I walked in a couple minutes late. So the disposition of the golf course, is the golf course closing?
Yes.
Okay.
They've been trying to close the golf course for the past 18 months and have given notice to the county of that closure about 2 years ago now, I guess, of the intended closure. There's obviously a utilities agreement for effluent discharge, and so for the immediate, really nothing could happen, even if the county had the option of acquiring the golf course and has told us they did not want to acquire the golf course. So the applicant then moved forward with this plan. So Jesus, the engineer, has been working with the utilities department to come to the conclusion of what is the effluent and where is the discharge and how will that work. And they have come to an agreement, and so there are some encumbrances on the property in favor of the county that will need to be amended and revised to reflect the new use. But the capacities and all of the utilities issues have, it's my understanding, have all been resolved and reconciled where there is no issue with that. But yes, the golf course, and I'm glad you asked Kevin, because I was going to go back and say that it is not viable. I mean, it will close no matter what. This is not a threat. This is not something different is going to happen. For the past, I can't tell you how the past 3 owners have been in my office asking to do something. I know the county staff is well aware. There's a residential parcel that's on there that has been undeveloped, and there have been many property or owners and developers trying to maximize the development out there with that parcel. And this owner was interested in the mitigation bank and connected with the Green Source team, and candidly, we feel like this is a great opportunity. Obviously, Burger Creek is one of the most important waterways and floodplain areas in the county, and to have a private owner invest this kind of money and time to better the water quality in this area and create a better flood situation for an area which is constantly under siege with floodwaters and water quality, we think is a really good solution to the lack of viability of the golf course. So.
We have a question. Sean, do you have a question?
I did. At the intro, you cited a lack of credits within the Tampa Bay watershed area. Is this project an attempt to acquire some credits to offset somewhere else in Brooker Creek?
We'll be creating credits.
Yeah, we'll be generating credits that then would be used for the offsets. It's not specific to Burger Creek. The service area for being able to trade the credits is the Tampa Bay Basin. It's an ERP watershed basin. This project is located in that watershed, and it can only trade credits within this watershed. It's not limited to just the Burger Creek subbasin, to answer your question specifically.
Is that the overall intent to get that done?
I'm not sure I understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
the entire purpose of the project is to create a mitigation bank that will create the credits, and once the credits are sold, the conservation easement will be over the property and prohibit development in the future.
Okay,
Does that
all right.
answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Steve, you have a question?
Yes. Who are you working with the utilities that all of this has been decided upon?
Who's a PSC?
Jeremy Wong designated somebody below an EI, Nora? I'm going off memory here. Does that make sense? Does that sound?
Nori Hancock is in charge of our operations group, and we did have conversations last year about this property. That's why I'm curious. I didn't know that this had already been decided upon. So anyway, now I know. Thank you.
Well, to be clear, nothing's been decided upon.
Okay.
That's it. My introduction was there were a lot of things to work out. There were things with respect to quantifying the discharge for utilities, how that would be accommodated on the site. Through those conversations between the engineers and the utilities department, both the plan that you're seeing today reflects the verbal discussions and the information that has been shared to ensure that there is no negative impact to the utility system.
Okay, that clarifies it a great deal. Thank you.
Yeah. We can get into more of the details, I'm sure Jesus can explain that's necessary, but we're maintaining the capacity and have sign off from DEP and their wastewater permit that the change of how the disposal occurs from the spray to being used to flow through the system is a beneficial use that is consistent with the new rules that the state wants to use for the wastewater.
That makes a lot of sense with the proposal and the amount of effluent that we're putting into the golf course now. That all seems very well thought out. I just wanted to make sure I understood what agreements were already in the pipeline with utilities.
I mean, it's our understanding that they've signed off on the idea of the design, shifting from spray to flow. And from there, we have to still go through the process.
Understood.
And we also did, I think it's important to note, I don't know if you heard Lisa share that, the DEP confirmed there was no permit mod required, which was one of the major concerns for the county was how DEP was going to react. And so about 6 or 8 months ago, I don't know if you were at the meeting, Steve, we had an all hands meeting with county utilities, DEP, and our team to walk through those options. DEP and the county both requested additional information. Our team provided that information. The county and DEP reviewed it, and the confirmation from DEP came back there was no permit mod necessary.
That makes sense to my understanding of the project so far. I mean, you're basically, for all intents and purposes, it looks like you're moving ponds around and adding ponds. So I don't think they would have a serious caveat against doing that.
Yeah, DEP's biggest concern was that the new rules that are coming in for how you use the wastewater, it's consistent with the beneficial use of the new Senate
Bill 64.
Yeah, so we wrote a narrative of how this would be consistent with what the expectations are, and they agreed that this is, consistent with what they would expect.
That makes sense to me. I think the water quality of the reclaimed water we're putting in there now is actually an improvement to local waterways, so I don't think they'd really have a lot of caveats against that.
Molly, do you want to give an overview of your?
Do we want to run through any comments, or do you have any that are?
Yeah.
That
Any
you
zoning
want to
questions?
hone in on specifically, or?
I thought we would run through the agenda there, the zoning questions. I thought something was a little unclear with the preservation, and then the residential development question, number 4, was important to us. I'm not opposed to going in order if that's what your typical procedure is.
Do you want me to ask those questions?
Yeah.
So specifically, we'll have to, I don't know that we have the map laid over the preservation, but the intention was to avoid existing preservation, but on the other hand, it's anticipated that this use with the conservation easement would be reflective of the preservation land use anyway. So would there be a future need to change the entirety of the MIG to preservation? And then is it prohibitive to make any changes in preservation in light of the fact that the changes are to create a mitigation bank, which is an approved preservation, a wetland system, which is obviously a preservation, reflective of the preservation category.
Yeah, and the comment in there, because we have pretty specific of no development But if you're going into preservation area to enhance that preservation, that wetland area, to expand it, yes, that's the kind of work you can do in there.
We just need to quantify what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, any new areas that are created that with a conservation area over it, we can, subsequent to site plan, we can do a map adjustment to add preservation to our map over those areas as well, consistent with the conservation zones.
So does that eliminate the need to adjust the preservation boundary lines, considering that we're doing enhancing?
Well, we
preservation?
would, we'd want to adjust them to reflect what's accurately out there. So if the preservation that's out there currently, if it's showing an area larger than what's actually preservation, and then when you're completed with this work, if it's showing, areas outside that are not actually preservation wetlands or 25-year floodplain, then, we can do those adjustments, though, that changes whether you have upland versus preservation. So
I think
it's entirely up to you if you want to change it to map it correctly, go through that exercise for the whole property.
I don't know that we want to do that before the sale of credits. I would think what we need to do for this process is have the map correctly reflect and quantify to them the acreage and preservation and the impacts within that preservation land use. In doing so, to Michael's point, we may discover that some of the areas that are colored dark green are not actually preservation. And so we just need in our narrative for the application to be able to describe, if I'm translating correctly, just interject if I'm not. We need to, in our narrative, be able to describe within the preservation areas, these are the impacts that are going to occur, or these are the benefits that are going to occur, and this is why it's permissible. Is that correct?
And if it's excavation within the edges of that green, would that be an impact that we would have to quantify because it's creating wetlands? I guess that's where I'm looking.
Yeah, your goal is to create wetlands, so, we have, basically the locational or the purpose of preservation is to preserve those areas. But also, if you're creating additional areas of environmental significance, that's something that's allowed, so in the process of impacting those wetlands to create more, from a zoning perspective, is it allowable? Something preservation.
We wouldn't end up by sheer definition, generally the entire area would probably be reflective of what you would otherwise classify as preservation. But whether
There's earthwork, yeah.
But there is impacts obviously within all that area to help that, which you're saying is permitted, which is great. But I think the outstanding question is post bank opening and operating, do we come back for an adjustment to reflect the whole thing as preservation?
Yes, that would be the ideal would be to any of those areas, those new areas would be to.
And is there an issue with a map adjustment based on the acreage, since we're talking 40 acres?
No, we've done map adjustments, section map adjustments that are, significant that
And
cover
just-
large areas of different parts. So it's we don't have a limit on it. It's just for correcting things that we done more accurately.
And for our team's sake, I'll say this and correct me if I'm wrong. So by definition, the preservation area is jurisdictional. So the point is, if you have a jurisdictional area, it should be designated preservation. If it's designated jurisdiction, if it's designated preservation on the map that's non-jurisdictional, they could adjust that out. But from our standpoint, it really doesn't matter because everything that's happening is going to be intended preservation, conservation use. So
Yes.
it just is whatever the end result is going to look like.
And from looking at that, everything that is colored in the dark green, the preservation is gonna be in mitigation. I don't see anywhere that it's not. I think sometimes, like, you might have to be a little patient with us in the write-ups. When we have a definition of impact that is specific to the way that we have to, typically the way that we think of impact is, filling in a wetland to an upland, right, when we have to get water management district permits. I think sometimes when we're doing the write-up for this, excavation could be considered an impact in most circumstances, but I don't think of it as an impact of work. The end goal is making the wetland better or bigger or whatnot, so that's why sometimes we might get confused on, there are no impacts in the preservation area. We're removing exotic trees, but like obviously we're like cutting down trees, so we'll need to be real specific.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for, and I was looking for touch on that, on the activity in there.
Right, because some of those areas that you're looking at cutting that are currently upland, our code has always desired to have those upland areas. So yes, what you just described is an impact because you're removing the upland land area, whether it's exotics now or not. Our code would require the exotics to be removed and the other native upland stuff be there. You're saying I want to get rid of the exotics and then make it more wetland. So that is an impact from our perspective.
Understood, yes. An impact to the upland habitat.
Correct.
Changing the wetland habitat, gotcha.
I have a question also just on the timing of the map amendment. Can you clarify, my understanding, is it a matter of from the applicant's perspective to know that there's a viable purchase of these credits before you commit to moving forward with the map amendment? Is that how I'm understanding that?
No, I think it's just the timing to get it done and under construction, because the adjustment wouldn't happen until it is reflective of jurisdictional. And so we wouldn't change the map before the project is completed and the credits were available to sell. Does that make sense? Because it wouldn't be, because that would be the trigger for the completion anyway. It's not going to be a jurisdictional, that timing would just naturally happen. Because you wouldn't do an administrative adjustment in advance of the wetlands being created.
Yeah, our adjustment, when we do preservation justice, let's say, example, a new subdivision coming in, we don't do that map adjustment until after, we have site plans completed, they're under construction. Once they know everything's gonna be in place, then we do it afterward. There's, we flag that to be done after the fact. Because then things can change, so if something comes up, we don't wanna have to go back and go through that process again.
Our permit with Swiftland requires the conservation easement to be dedicated before any credits are released. So to your question about sale of the credits, there's a high demand, so we don't necessarily have a line of sales where another guy sell, but we don't get credits released for sale by Swiftland until the conservation easement is dedicated that permanently protects the site. And
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, we have to do some other setting up financial insurance as well. So there's certain benchmarks that we have to meet with the Swiftland ERP permit before we would get any credits released. And at that point, once that conservation easement goes down, we're basically, locked into the construction and everything else, like through the process moving forward. And I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, at that point, it would make sense to adjust, the map, because then we also have needs and bounds with the conservation easement. There can be tiny little tweaks, who knows?
And I know this is not necessarily relevant. Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Are there established rates for the credits that would be purchased? Is that something that Swiftland establishes, or is it market driven?
The price is market driven.
Yeah.
Correct. The number of credits that are awarded, or the potential number of credits that
Right.
could be generated from the project is determined ahead of time when we get ERP permit. And if things change, then those things can be adjusted up or down, but the number of credits and the types of credits and what benchmarks have to be met, performance standards have to be met to have them released. We have a credit release schedule, that we don't get them all up front. We don't have to wait till the end, like we get them as we meet interim performance. All of that stuff is negotiated through the ERP process, but the actual market transactions,
Yeah.
the SWIFT's not involved with, we just have to maintain the ledger and turn in monitoring reports and those sorts of things.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
I think the timing also goes to the next, and I apologize, I had eye surgery, and so I'm trying to read, and all I see a lot are like weighty words, so I apologize if I'm missing some of the nuances of this. But the next one deals with the transfer of residential units, and we understand currently there are a couple of places on the golf course which currently have residential designations and have a holdover from the original master plan, have density available, and that's like that little island thing. So our client would like the opportunity, that little island thing where much of the residential developed units are located today, is going to be part of the mitigation bank, and therefore they would like the opportunity to move in the future. And what we'd like to work on is a path, and we can get together maybe outside of this, what that path is. So I know it would be an amendment to the development plan and such, but what our suggestion is now is we would carve out those residential areas where there's the potential for future residential development, and that would be excluded from the site plan application and process. But I want, before we submit and go all the way through the process, we just want to be sure we have a clear path for in the future, if our client desires to build some of the homes on the upland areas which are available. It may require a map amendment, and we appreciate that. We just want to be clear on that process. We don't have to take the time this morning to do that, but I think that's like
Yeah, let's,
more question.
we can discuss it afterwards.
Right.
But it's, yeah, you'd be looking at a minimum master plan.
Right.
Amendment, future land use map amendment, everything's RPD, so it's all covered by the master plan out there. But yeah, those are the things.
Okay, but for example, we wouldn't want to change everything with an administrative adjustment to preservation and remove those residential designations. We would most likely want to do the residential map amendment and the preservation adjustment all at once, and so we can show, you know, where all of that is happening. So from a timing standpoint, Kevin, to answer your question, why would we wait? I think from our client's perspective, it would be important to them to know that they are preserving the potential of some of that residential development. There's no way from a land area standpoint, the amount of development that's permitted out there could ever actually happen. I don't think there's not going to be enough upland residential area left to do it, but there's at least some. So we would just want to walk through that process and do it all at once.
Where's the little island thing?
No, where they're at.
Yeah, on the north part, it's like the one with the,
Listed as potential for the
tree
25
right there,
northwestern.
the undeveloped tree farm looking thing.
That area, that's where
That's
that track,
current.
that track has residential density per the master plan tied to that tract.
There's floodway there too.
I know.
And it's still zoned as residential. We don't want to build there. We want
Yeah.
to potentially move it over to the west,
Yes.
Little Thumb.
So it's like it can't be built there. However, it's tied to that, but it's when they signed for areas in the master plan, that area was given this pot of density. And it's not being, has never been built because the floodway out there, so.
What year was that?
And there was still density left over from
It's gone
Scotland.
from like the eighties.
82.
Yeah.
So we already have an adopted floodway there, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this started in like the 70s through the 80s.
It's just a half parcel that has this. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just got numbers.
We missed anything, Molly, Michael, and then?
No, unless, I just provided just the specific use standards for land excavation or fill activity.
So we do have a question about that,
Sure.
just to be clear, because there are more than 1,000 cubic yards
Yeah.
that will be moved around. And so we just wanted, and I would emailed, I think, before, this was our question, Daryl and Kevin, before, you know, we know a site plan is required, we just want to be sure that's an administratively approved site plan. That's why we're going through this process.
Right, as
It's
a
all-
minor modification,
Right.
yeah,
Okay,
through site.
Yeah, we used to have excavation.
and it sometimes
that
trigger the
had to
special
go to
exception,
the
Yeah.
Board of Adjustment. However, the requirements that were needed for Board of Adjustment was sign off and approval from our engineering. And then it would go to the Board of Adjustment, then it would come back to be reviewed again by engineering, so that it was determined that process.
okay,
Look at if we took the Board of Adjustment process.
perfect. That was the reason I was asking before, because it had always been a special exception type of approval and
This is also considered development under the floodplain code too, so all the modeling's gonna need to be done as well.
And I think in the early assistance meeting, it's not a phased project, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was still the case.
And I know you also had on there, the last one, number 7, was the easements out there vacation, so.
so that there's one agreement that has, by its nature, created some easements out there, some of which are gonna need to be adjusted, but that's a bigger, we're just gonna have to sit down and look at that agreement and say exactly what. The agreement's not very clear on easements, it gives a blanket easement, there's a bunch of pipes. Pipes are not gonna be necessary after they change the type of, so. So you and I will just need to probably go through line by line of that agreement and see what it needs to say and go from there.
Some pipes are staying, some pipes are going. We couldn't find any documentation of some sort of actual meets and bounds boundary around those areas, but we obviously would like to have that tightened up, because we're gonna wanna know where everything is.
Instead of the blanket easement.
Yeah, like, you know, maintenance easement, who actually owns those lines and all of that, so we're still working that out. These things got it covered, so. With the new design that the utilities looked at, DEP signed off on, and others on.
Yeah, my staff handles that through the vacations. So you can touch base through us, and we'll get county attorney's office involved and go through all of it.
Yeah, and I think one of the hard parts is there's not an actual quote unquote easement. There's this utility agreement that within it grants the county rights to have these pipes and so that's what we just need to figure out. I don't know that we're vacating an easement, we probably instead need to amend an agreement and have it give the county an easement. Is what my expectation would be.
Maria White in on that.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Let's do Maria White.
Yes.
See how she handles those.
Okay, Cliff's environmental section is the next comment, and it's pretty standard, but they're there, we need to reference back about like surveying trees, 4 inches, deviation higher, so on. Large trees to be, desirable trees to be retained if possible.
So in one of our thank you,
Yeah.
and I do have a couple of follow-up in our previous meeting, I think we had talked about maybe a modified or like hybrid tree survey, anything that was gonna be within 20 feet of earthwork, we were going to inventory.
Okay.
Trees that were outside of, 20 feet of any of the earthwork.
No construction at all?
Construction, earthwork,
Earthwork.
okay, yes, we were gonna use the earthwork boundary, 20 feet. When you say construction, I say construction, planting trees is construction in our terminology, but,
Yeah.
so, yeah. we were using the earthwork boundaries, anything within 20 feet, we were going to inventory.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
The other installation is not a problem.
Okay.
But if you're changing grades, you're filling, you're expanding ponds, all of that, any trees within those areas, we have to have a tree survey.
Understood. And then we do, like Green Source Environmental does tree surveys all the time.
Okay,
We're not certified arborists though.
okay.
Is there wiggle room on
Mhm.
qualifications of who does the?
You can do it. We're gonna just look at it. I
Okay,
mean, just like if it was the arborist doing it, we're gonna spot check what they do and see that we agree with it. So,
absolutely, sure. Okay. Yeah.
And then everything outside of that 20 foot would still be subject to, tier 1 exotic removal.
correct.
Oh, for sure. Well, yes. We're
Okay.
gonna get
I just wanna
into the
say.
exotics anyway, but yes,
Yeah.
yeah, pine tree.
And as long as that removal is again by hand spraying, not pulling it out. Because again, if you're doing it with equipment, then other stuff needs to be.
And we'll describe all of that in the management, in the construction plan, what we call the construction restoration plan that we have to turn into PRP. So once that's developed, we'll let you take a look at it, because
But definitely-
sometimes the terminology is different. I
Correct.
just wanna make sure we're not, if we say something different, it's not that we're trying to be misleading, it's that we're in a lexicon that we typically use that's
Right.
different than.
Yeah, no problem, because we're gonna want a detailed, exotic removal plan anyway, what you're doing and how. One thing with respect to the wetlands, again, I know when you're all said and done, majority of this area, you're gonna be turning a lot of golf course into quote upland buffers in a sense by planting them.
Mhm.
However, so that we have it clear on our plan what our standard code requirements are, some of the wetland areas out there, because of the golf courses have always been out there, we've never had some of these areas ever shown on a plan with respect to them being wetlands.
Okay.
Therefore, we have no idea of technically what upland buffers should be on those respective wetlands.
Okay.
Now, again, we know some of these areas you're expanding the lakes. Some of these areas look like, from just aerials, not being out there, they look like little wetland systems that you're creating ponds around.
Mhm.
So again, technically that's a wetland impact. So your description of what you're doing is, I'm just saying, you're gonna need to be clear on that, because like I said, there are some of these areas that in reality for us, it truly is a wetland impact. Not to say that at the end of the day, it's not a betterment for the system, the environment in general, but just so that we can make it clear on the plans and overall have a good, at the end of the day, yes, you had X amount of quote, from our perspective, wetland impact, but you created these other things. The same goes with like uplands. Our code requirement may be technically, we got 5 little wetlands and those are all isolated, not, wetlands that require 50-foot buffers.
Mhm.
So essentially we should have X amount of square feet of upland habitat provided at the end of the day on some of those, because you're doing ponds on those wetlands. We may not have any quote upland on it, but in the grand scheme, you created X amount of uplands. So it offsets the fact that there's no upland buffer directly adjacent to that wetland, but you have excess of uplands
Right.
as
Right.
well.
The whole system.
So just kind of
Okay.
charting in it on the plan so that it's clear to those kind of things.
Well, to that point, I would say we're very accurate in collecting the baseline data on what is currently wetland and upland.
Okay.
What it will look like afterwards. And
Okay.
we can label it as needed, as well as, table it out, metrics wise. But, we keep very close track because it is related to how we generate our credits with the other permit on, what's open water and wetland, what, all the different categories that you said, we have that inventory. So if we need to adjust how that's done to make you happy with what we're doing.
Okay.
I did notice the one comment about the tree replacement. You know, we'll still do the calculations. And, you know, grand oaks, big trees, you know, we were conscientious in our design. We can go back and take a look at it, but we definitely talked about how our wetland creation areas were going around our trees as much as we could, because we were trying to be conscientious of that. We will be planting, just to be clear, a lot of the wetlands that are being created are gonna stay as emergent, like freshwater marsh, non-forested.
Okay.
The floodplain at Burker Creek and anywhere that there are currently forested wetlands, those will be enhanced.
Okay.
And we'll have trees, additional supplemental plantings, and then the entire upland area, if we lose some tree DBH from upland trees, they will be replaced by, you know, we're gonna be planting trees, a mixture of pines and oaks through the entire area. So, we're gonna do our best to make sure that we would meet the typical metrics, but like, you know, a good example is in the southeast corner, I guess, where, you know, we've designed the wetland excavation area in red in between those two green areas to avoid the canopy, the drip line of all of those trees along the southern buffer. That's just one example. Some areas we just couldn't get around it because of the other engineering requirements, but to the best extent you can see from the design that we've avoided as many of the larger trees as possible, so that, you know,
We maintain screening, avoiding impacts to the neighbors.
yeah, we were being sensitive.
Upland resource.
Yeah, we were being sensitive to the trees when we did it, so, you know, if we did have to take some out, we're gonna offset it, but we did take that into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you for answering my questions as well.
Sure.
Anything else you need, we'd be more than happy to provide that information.
Okay, we'll move on to engineering. Dan Morris with engineering here, if you have any questions for the engineering portion. And we
did some
also,
preliminary calculations, we're definitely not anticipating, a net fill, or it's gonna be exporting the material at this point. Cut must be contiguous to the floodplain. Not all of the cut may be in the floodplain. I'm sure what does that mean? Cut must be contiguous.
Not connected by a pipe, so not connected by a pipe, so
Oh,
if you've
okay,
got
yeah.
existing floodplain, you're not gonna, you know,
Yes.
fill it in and then separate compensation over here, it's gonna be contiguous.
Got it, yeah, I guess what I'm envisioning is that explanation to me, like if we were doing a typical floodplain compensation, you don't want it to be connected hydraulically controlled by a pipe, or you want it free flowing. Yeah, and that's consistent with any cut that we do, like adjacent to the creek or something like that. It's going to be, you know, just kissing the edge of the wetland, and that's it. There won't be any kind of hydraulic control structure there. So we got the model. Our plan was to do a revised existing conditions model with the survey that we got for the golf course. I haven't fully done a deep dive on the model to see if you had the benefit that we have of the science of survey of the entire golf course. I don't know if you did that for the model. We do. So I was going to have that model updated. That's what I'm calling the revised existing conditions
So
model.
that'll need to be peer reviewed.
Oh.
So we have a new effective Burker Creek model, which has been peer reviewed, it's the new effective model, so that's what you'll start with. If you want to revise that, you'll have to get peer reviewed. And that's a third-party peer reviewer.
That's not Pinellas County. Pinellas County can't do that.
Nope.
Is that in the code that it would have to be?
That's our policy, yes. So if you want to revise the effective model, it has to be a peer reviewed model. And if you use one of we have general engineering contracts with folks that we've already vetted for, you know, the skills and ability to do these peer reviews. So if you select somebody that, you know, develops watershed plans for us, then we won't need to review and vet whoever you select to do the peer review, but you're welcome to select somebody that's not on our
Just
list.
start the same person that did it, that would, or whatever, just the expediency. I mean, how long does this process take, that peer review?
Well, I was gonna ask, is that pre-submittal, or is that part of the submittal review, or from a time?
So you would want to have the peer-reviewed revised existing conditions model done before you start working on your proposed conditions, so that if there's something wrong with the revised existing conditions, you don't have to change 2 models. So I would recommend that you get the existing conditions, the revised existing conditions approved first.
It can last up to
I don't know,
many don't.
review, I mean, I don't know, I mean,
That depends on the workload, I guess, of the firm that you select to do the peer review.
wow, that's in the code for Knox County, that needs to be done.
That was our policy. And then you'll also need to do the Plomar for the FEMA maps. Presumably you'll be moving things around with the FEMA map as well. So you'll need to go through the Plomar process.
That's fine.
And in order for us to sign off on that, you'll have to have the detailed environmental assessment for all the threatened and endangered species.
That's fine.
To meet all the state and federal codes.
Understood. So then, once we have the revised existing conditions model, then we would do our proposed,
And that's where you do your comparisons, and you have to ensure that you're not increasing discharge, you're not increasing, you're not creating rise.
right. How is the floodway currently defined? I mean, how do you?
So our floodway in this particular area is actually, there's no surcharge. So it's the adopted floodway from the Stormwater Master Plan.
Okay.
And that's been delineated, I believe we gave you that back in, I don't know, last fall or whenever it was that we met.
I thought so, but I didn't know if you said there was a floodway model for it. So
No, we do
there
not.
isn't a floodway
We do
model.
not have the floodway model.
Okay.
And our definition of floodway, this particular area, of course, we adopted, it's a 0 surcharge in this area because the floodway is the width of the floodplain. For FEMA's floodway, I'm not sure what was modeled there. That was, I think it's from 2003 on that panel.
Well, I don't know if they don't have, my understanding is that there would be a FEMA floodway model that would show encroachments, and that those encroachments would be defined to go up to 0.1, I think, in Pinellas County.
It's 0.1 for us, yeah.
Yeah, but I just understood that there was no floodway model with encroachments, right? So I guess that's my question, is how was the limits of the floodway defined if there was no floodway model that had the widths showing the encroachment?
Because the floodway is the width of the floodplain, because there's no surcharge for this particular area as adopted by our Stormwater Master Plan.
So then our I mean, we don't have to do an encroachments model, that is what I'm hearing.
If you are adjusting the FEMA map, then yes, you will have to do it for the FEMA.
Okay.
For ours, for our watershed plan, we
Yes.
treat the whole thing as a floodway. So, no, you don't
The
need to do
FEMA
it.
doesn't have a floodway model, so, but for your purposes, we could submit that, the proposed conditions model, and just show the 100-year floodplain as the floodway, no surcharge, we're not expecting. any
Right, no surcharge.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to check your velocities and things like that too, your discharge.
Right, but we're not anticipating any surcharge, I don't think FEMA, if they don't have an encroachments model now, we'll work with FEMA for that, okay.
Are we required to change the FEMA map of the Glenmore? I mean, usually, and this is my ignorance on this side, I mean, I'm usually involved in projects where we want to change the FEMA map because we're looking to raise elevations for development purposes. In this situation, we're not doing that at all. We're probably lowering the elevations and creating, so is there some requirement that we even need to get a Glenmore?
Yeah, let me pull up the code. And frequently what happens is folks don't do the Plomar, and then later on they come in and they decide they want to do the map change for the reasons that you're saying. And then I can't sign the acknowledgement because we haven't gone through that process of checking everything along the way. And, I can't sign off on an acknowledgement after the fact. So I would recommend you go through the Plomar process.
Okay.
For the future, but let me pull up the code here.
Again, we're just trying to understand if it's a condition of a permit, if it's from a timing standpoint. Is it in 158?
Yeah, I'm looking at 158.82 right now. And that's an approximate, so that's not this. Submission, so it's 158.84. So it says the applicant has the right to submit. So we cannot make you do it, but it is highly recommended.
Especially if you're looking to set aside areas for long-range future residential properties, change the FEMA map now, that way you don't have to deal with it later.
Thank you, that's a good point.
And then 6A, provide floodplain improvements to remove existing residences. Is that request or what? How? I mean, not that we're.
He wrote it like a request. If you can improve the floodplain for your neighbor, please do so. He said,
Maybe
yeah,
they're not
to the,
closing doors and ask if people want to demo their houses.
no.
No.
Shrink the floodplain so that it doesn't extend onto your neighbor's property, because everybody up there is in some kind of floodplain.
Change the floodplain, I was like.
Change the floodplain maps, because
I did too, it says read one resident, I was like, I'm sure these folks out there will really appreciate that.
well, and no, to be fair, in this area, we have a couple of residences, well, probably more than a couple, who come in every other year saying, has my floodplain map changed? So I'm not in the floodplain anymore. That way they don't have to submit their new letter of map amendment to FEMA every time the new FEMA maps come out, or every time they make a small change. And we have to tell them, no, we can't do that because your development was never intended to be out of the floodplain. So if you can make the floodplain lower, please do so. It'll help everybody's insurance rates out there. But no, he wrote, I didn't write this, Randy did. He said, to the extent possible,
Actually,
provide improvements. And that's actually a requirement of the code too, is, do as much as you can to improve existing residences from the floodplain. But I don't know that there's anything that says you shall do that. Just don't make it any worse.
you
We
can't
won't
make
be able
it
to
any
improve
worse.
it
That's where the no rise and no increase in discharge, and then when you redelineate the floodplain, you're gonna see that you're not causing adverse impact onto the folks that are already out there. The maps though, sorry to make one minor correction, the maps have nothing to do with flood insurance rates now under risk rating 2.0. The only relation to flood insurance that they have is you're in or you're out, it's required or it's not with a federally backed mortgage.
But most of those people don't have federally backed mortgages. That's why my statement still is not incorrect.
It doesn't affect the rates.
So, I guess we got through all that. I'm gonna take Public Works. Sean, is that Sean?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The floodway, just make sure you go to 221.
Several of them.
Number 2 is your exemption.
Good, Sean.
Is a couple of them, some of them are just informative, like number 1 and number 5. Number 2's been answered. Number 3, are we going to be doing any work within Channel A, within the floodway itself, to help enhance its performances? We've received complaints over the last few years of down trees, sediment islands, et cetera, et cetera.
So at the southern end, we were looking to do some kind of floodplain widening there at the very southern end. I don't recall there being any trees to be removed in that area. I think that's just like the 18 green. And we're going to widen it there just before it goes under the bridge underneath the creek. That was probably what I would call, that's most likely within the floodway.
Okay.
The area, the driving range, wetland reclaimed reuse area was basically the massively large red hatched area just east of the golf course. That's going to be used to replenish the storage that's available for the reclaimed use, effluent use. And like I say, that's like about elevation 8, if I recall, maybe higher. So we're gonna have to dig that down quite a bit. So, and that's all adjacent to the floodway. I'm not, again, I mean, if you guys can overlay a floodway map, that might be within the floodway too. And our intent there was just to go ahead and like I said before, for the lack of a better term, is just go up and kiss up to the wetland and just remove material right up to the edge of it without impacting existing wetland resources. So all that's going to be excavated now. I mean, I'm just letting you guys know this ahead of time so we can talk about, or so you guys can visually see what our benefits to the floodplain is going to be. That's a substantial reduction. I doubt the flood elevation is elevation 10. It might be, I guess, I don't know. But that driving range area is going to be chopped down quite a bit.
Okay.
So I think that's the answer to your question about any work within Channel A to enhance performance.
Yes.
I mean, the way it overtops and goes into the driving range wetland, what I'm calling the driving range wetland now, it might be something else. I mean, that's going to be attenuated in the wetlands there. And, you know, I don't think it's going to, the way we're going to design it, it's not going to improve conveyance downstream. It's going to be like an off-stage storage, you know, area, non-effective conveyance area. We're not increasing the flow downstream. We're allowing it to pop off and settle in that area and basically attenuate it somewhat. Talk to me about SFN 501 area. That's question number 5.
That's just a comment, or just a comment for your knowledge. That's all.
Okay.
Just those two fell into that area. Just that was for your knowledge. Same way with like number 1, the petition to vacate, whichever ones you have to do. That's just for your knowledge for future planning and stuff.
What does that mean, SFN 501 area? Is that something I need to be?
It's part. It's got a designation over for our survey department that kind of needs to be addressed, like easements. There may be some restrictions and covenants on it. I don't know. We may need to look at that. It popped up on my review, and then I was looking at all the different layers for our easements and stuff, and I just happened to notice, oh, hey, that's in that area. Just wanted to advise you of that. That may be something to have to explore along with the easements.
Well, Sean, do you have that survey that would we be able to provide that to them?
I did that on our WebGIS. If you pull up the WebGIS area and then put on the survey file network, it'll bring up all 3 SFN areas. And the only one that I saw that impacted the applicant was just that one area. And it's an FSN 501 area, so I just wanted to advise them of that. That's all.
I see. Okay.
Is that on the public GIS or that's on your internal one?
I believe that's internal.
Okay.
Want me to share my screen real quick?
I think Clint has it up.
Okay.
It
was just advisory. That's all. That was the only one. The other SFN areas don't seem to impact it.
Okay. You might want to turn off some of those preservation.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
So you just wanted them to be aware that that area is what you would call that area.
Correct.
Referencing that area for you. Okay.
Right.
This will be a little bit clearer.
Yeah, there you go. You see the 00501 dash, I'm sorry, underscore 01573.
Yeah.
That is the SFN 501 area. And that did fall within your ponds. That's all. It was just meant to be advisory for your planning. It's nothing.
Do you know what it does?
Do we know
it's an area
Well, you could
area of concern?
reach out to me. We'll
Yeah.
petition the city folks to get that.
Okay.
We need to
Look into that. To find out what exactly, we can find out what that is.
Yes. Okay.
You guys have surveyed that or will be surveying that?
We've had
We have
work and
surveyed,
surveys and we don't have an easement up there on our stuff, right?
That's, yeah.
Yeah,
We haven't
so
We have a survey.
that's why we're wondering what it is.
We'll run it down, that's not critical here.
We'll just get it from you all. Thank you.
I just didn't understand what that was.
Alright.
So many acronyms.
My staff that handles that, she weighed in, said that they, it's survey conducted research in that area for something in the past, so that's there identified, but we could follow up with our survey department to find out
Actual encumbrance or.
what is out there.
No worries.
Thank you, Sean.
Number, let's see. Number 4 is the applicant proposing to fill in the existing open water ponds. So yes, we do like to fill in a portions of them to make littoral zones, not fill them in above seasonal high. We still want them to function as wetlands and have littoral zones and flow throughs, you know, that you need to for existing stormwater purposes. But we're gonna be creating as much littoral zone within the bodies of water that exist out there. And again, that's nutrient uptake, wetland, wetland habitats and aesthetic beauty, all that, part of our wetlands mitigation base.
Oh, excellent. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. That was one I saw Phil, and my next question would, Army Corps got anything to say about this? Or are they in this jurisdiction? They always, I wouldn't go ask them if they have jurisdiction, because they'll tell you they do.
Don't tell them you all.
No, I'm not asking them anything.
No,
I
a
was just wondering.
permit is a 404 permit.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And then I think you just answered. You answered the other part of number 6, and obviously number 7's been answered. If the community understands the golf course is going away.
There has not been a public announcement of that.
Oh, so they don't know.
We presume they have an idea.
It has been failing for some time.
Yes.
I do know there's an attorney that lives out there, and I know she tried to rally the troops in that area to try to potentially buy it and turn it into a park. I don't know. That was more than 5 years ago. So I'm assuming they understand that it's not going to survive, but just didn't know what was happening. If they had been consulted on what this is going to happen yet.
So Sean, that's just kind of prompted a thought. Is there any contemplation of public accessibility to this property post, or is it entirely
Prohibited by.
prohibited?
Specifically prohibited by the SWIFT permit, there can be public access on the Wetland Mitigation Act. The conservation easement is dedicated to Southwest Florida Water Management District, and they're worried about recreating natural habitats, so there's no public access. That's not a call.
So is the course fenced today? So if it's not going to have public accessibility, would that translate to some other form of perimeter?
Yes.
Perimeter.
We have to provide site security. Yeah, there's some areas that are already fenced by the adjacent property owners, just putting a fence around their yard. But we'll put up something, whether it's a fence, whether it's signage that knows what's going on.
That always stops them.
We have to keep people from going on site.
Yeah.
So
We've seen in the past, signs didn't really stop people. They just start plowing in and increasing their backyard because no one's.
So the golf course has little markers all around that seem to line up with the actual property boundaries to tell the golfers when they can't go into somebody's yard to go and get the golf ball.
Right.
So, we deal with this in all of our well mitigation acts. If somebody wants to get in there, they're gonna climb over the fence, whatever kind of fence we put in. And we have not decided, because we consult with Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and SWIFMUD about what type of perimeter, protections there are. But obviously, we don't want trespassing, we don't want people, littering or, whatever, doing anything. But we have not decided on what type of, for lack of a better term, barrier we're gonna put up between us and the neighbors. But there will be something, they will know what's going on.
McDonald's.
With the
I was
whole.
gonna jot down on this on the end, that kind of gave me an opening on it. And I remember this came up a few months ago, and there was some internal discussion, mostly with Glenn. But are we confident, I'm asking zoning and land use staff at this point, about the future land use designations, especially recreation, open space, given the fact this is not public access, which is familiar to me with other mitigation projects. They typically aren't parks. So, you know, but we have the right future land use categories, or do we need an amendment to make this uniform?
No, you can have, rec open space does not have to be public. There can be private rec open space, it can be considered just open space, not even recreation, that's why it's recreation / open space. So public or private open space, public-private park, public recreation facilities, public beach water access, golf course, clubhouse. So this would fall under as open space, private open space. Because we look at that.
My concern is not so much with just this project alone, but that with these categories, it's setting a precedent for the use of these categories. Not gonna have probably a high volume mitigation thanks to Pinellas County, but you know, once you use a category one way, you gotta use it the same way for everybody else. So I'm just noting that issue that are these the appropriate cocktail of future land use categories for this use? Or you would a uniform and it'd be more appropriate. It is, you know, it's not I'm not the interpreter of that, but I have to note it because I don't know if the language is quite as clear as just goes open space.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we have additional, so we have preservation, we have a preservation resource management, that's over most of our Brooker Creek Preserve area. We have a facility-based recreation resource-based, so it depends on the impact. But from my discussions with Glenn, what we've looked at it is that this is allowed under this land use category because it's not recreational open space, it's recreational and or open space. So private open space is allowed, so you can have it undeveloped open area with that designation on it, and it can be fenced off, it's private for your use only.
Sorry, beaches.
Actual building.
Building
Yep.
is, we're not proposing any buildings, I guess, well, not immediately, because it might take out the residential, whatever we're gonna do there.
Yeah,
It's not-
everything is not applicable.
Okay.
So I think that's
Something, I guess the guy did this thought as a part or something.
Well, just in case.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
No, you had on there proposed on that, for where the clubhouse is, so if the golf course closes, is there,
They wanted to keep that as commercial, because part of it, it's already zoned as commercial.
well, it's commercial recreation, which so it has to be tied to a recreational use, so it couldn't be, you know, retail, office, you know, anything that goes
Restaurant,
to
daycare.
a general, no, unless, I mean, it would have to be, if you had a clubhouse with a restaurant in it, yeah, but it has to be some type of recreational use.
Top golf.
Putt golf for residents.
Indoor shooting range.
I think if you, the equipment then.
There you go.
And observation.
Put a tower up there.
Duly noted, yeah, we're carving it out because it already had that, it doesn't, you don't need a clubhouse or a parking lot in a wetland mitigation bank, and they can potentially use it for something else. So we're just carving out and letting them figure that out later on. But good to know about the
Yeah.
conditions.
Yeah, commercial rec is pretty specific.
That's interesting, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that. We're not gonna have any buildings, we're not gonna request the service for, I guess, the various utility questions I'm passing them on because we're not, unless I'm missing something.
I think they just figured, just in case
Just kind of
conceptually
interesting.
something was going to be modified or changed.
I thought it was tied into the commercial,
Yeah.
to the clubhouse side, but we're gonna try to keep that out, so. On the pipeline contractor. Yeah, so we are gonna be, we're planning on vacating that easement, I think it's on the last one. Server location of all underground utilities on golf course property. With existing clubhouse to be removed, it'll be removed from the limits of this project. It's just within our property, we've gotten a survey sketch and boundary, meets record boundary description to get that out. Number 3, you will be removing 242,000 cubic yards. That's, obviously that's grounded right now, but we are going to be exporting fill. So an underground survey, is that an SUE? What are we designating a survey here for number 5?
Steve?
That's for number 4.
You're going to be removing, I'm going to say about a quarter mile of 6-inch reclaimed pipe in a utility easement. So if you've looked at the mapping of the available easements on property, they basically replicate what the pipe is that's running across the golf course. We have a 6-inch main, reclaim main that runs all the way over to the very eastern pond on the golf course in that easement. We've also got a sanitary sewer force main that runs between Anwood Road and Tonywood. So we want to understand that you know what pipe's there, because obviously if you're vacating those easements, you're having all that pipe removed.
Yeah, so we were planning on vacating the easement east of the driving range pond, so all the way to the back pond. But the only area where we probably would need to eliminate existing infrastructure is in that area where we talked about before. We were trying to circumvent the trees. It's just south of the back pond. I think that's the terminology that you all use. We're not touching the sewer easement that goes between those, that's right in the middle of the screen there. We're not touching that one. The one that goes across the course. We're not touching that one.
So primarily we're talking about the reclaim easement.
That's right. Yeah, just the reclaimed one. That's right.
And is all that pipe coming out of the ground as part of the project?
Only within our limits of excavation. I don't think we need to in areas that we don't. I mean, we could just plug it if you want. I mean.
Yeah, we would want that. Normally, if the pipe isn't going to be used anymore, we wanted it grouted and filled, but I guess we can talk about that when this becomes a full-blown utilities project.
Right. Yeah, I mean, since we're not proposing excavation along that full polygon that's in green there around the pipe, we're not proposing to excavate in all of those areas. So in those areas that we were going to touch, we could do something. I mean, I'm just saying, just cap the end, line the lands, or just grout and water the end or whatever. Yeah, we could talk about that more.
Yeah, the easternmost pond, I'm assuming at some point in time was supposed to be connected to get rid of the effluent or put the effluent into the pond, and I don't think that ever took place. I think that pipe is there, but I'm kind of dubious about how much it's used.
So you've never been putting effluent in that back pond, is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know exactly how the ponding is all stitched together. The pond that's right behind 136 and 134 Anwood is the receiving pond right now. The flotation devices are in there, and that's where they do all the monitoring of all the effluent that's going into the pond. But the back pond, I'm unaware if that's connected as an extra retention facility for water we're getting out of the system.
Okay, well, I mean, there's some flashboard risers there, but I don't see any flashboards anywhere. And the south pond goes north, and then it goes all the way around the golf course. So it doesn't surprise me that it hasn't been used.
I have a question, because you mentioned moving soil. Has the soil been tested for contaminants? I mean, that's gonna be a big factor in this entire plan.
It is, I think that's ongoing. It is. I mean, you're right, it is a factor. That's what I'm saying, that it is, yes.
The owners had phase one done for when they were looking at development, and it didn't come back recommending doing anything else.
So that's not my area of expertise, but I suspect you're going to need to document soil quality.
Yes.
And this is Rob Burns from Environmental chiming in. It's not just the material you're removing, but it's the areas you're exposing to will need to be tested to make sure you're now not, exposed to something.
Darren, I'll get with Maria on it, but with Steve's point, I think you all show easements, but in reality, there's just the blanket agreement out there. So we just need to eventually get precise, because I think we're gonna end up what the process is to amend that agreement. It'd still be a county commission decision, obviously. But then I anticipate the owner's going to be granting the county specific easements that currently don't exist over some of these places where you all show on your map that there are easements.
I kind of understand that. Back in the day when Reclaim came into these areas, it was mostly for the golf courses, and I think the agreements were made without defined easements. It was just an agreement that you would receive X amount of gallons of water. But I'm sure we can get that straightened out.
That's the agreement I'm referring to, Steve. There's a agreement from the 80s which just outlines that the golf course will accept the water, but it doesn't specifically grant easements over the pipes. It just kind of says that it's all out there. We just need to sort out procedurally, are we really vacating easements, or are we amending a utilities agreement and granting easements, and kind of where that works.
I understand that. I mean, we do show a utility easement over where the pipe is, but I don't understand what that easement entails. Some of them are pretty unusual, and I think this is one of them because of it being a golf course. And back then, there were very few Reclaim customers, so the golf course has got the lion's share of the service.
I do have something I want to just raise from the future management of this property. What's contemplated, I was thinking about right now, there is a closed golf course in the county, in the Seminole area, that within chapter 22 maintenance for properties over a certain size, there are requirements about the perimeter of the property being maintained with grass not above, I think it's 12 inches or something like that. And it's become a rather important consideration from that whole neighborhood group, from just rodent control, and snakes coming into their backyards and so forth. So I did want to just kind of give you a heads up that you should be aware of that provision within the code. And also, if there's something alternatively proposed, you'd want to get that into the management plan, and it might be something that has to be coordinated with the neighbors, because there's right now it defines the depth of this area that has to be maintained, and I realize that runs sort of counter to everything you're doing. I get it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Is there a code number or something that we should?
Yeah, I can
Look up.
send over,
Get that.
it's in chapter 22,
I mean,
but I,
let's see where we, slow 5 feet inside of the fence.
Yeah. And then just in general, beyond the perimeter side, I would, I would imagine, everything there's still maintenance at some point that's required. There's nothing contemplated as in, an on-site, it just equipment or manpower would be brought off-site into the property when maintenance is necessary.
Most of the maintenance, our expectations is that it's gonna be vegetative maintenance, so it'd be foot, maybe UTVs, like personnel carriers. There might be sometimes just thinking out loud, the discharge point, vehicular access, be able to get in and do stuff in their control structures.
Well, those controls, existing off-site conveyances that, like, for example, some of the roads discharge into the golf course ponds. I would think that your existing right of way to maintain those pipes would be sufficient for vehicular access for those, in those areas. So I don't anticipate anything beyond that.
We do have
Try brainstorming any kind of interface or consideration, just so that, as you move forward with this application, it's as inclusive as it can be, just to not have things come up that, could you think about that type of thing, just, there's always an interface like you're talking about, if there's right-of-way connectivity into this, just have those conversations with Public Works.
Yeah, all those roads that are adjacent to,
Rural use, we have to maintain perimeter, use that as maintenance trails. We do have to get around through the site to be able to do, we're required to do the ongoing exotic treatment. The expectation is, while the bank is operational, get the weeds down, but then we still have to manage what you're calling pop-ups or whatnot. So folks will be going out there periodically to evaluate, to do monitoring, whether it's quantitative or qualitative monitoring, and then to, zap it into the exotics that show up. So they're not necessarily in predefined trails. Sometimes we have to do that, sometimes not. So good point. We'll keep that in mind. We want to make sure that we can get everywhere to be able to do what we need to do.
Just gonna chime in on some of those areas where there are residential homes adjacent to. I know you earlier, there's the comment about fencing or not fencing. Strongly recommend fencing personally, having been here a long time. A lot of these areas on, not necessarily out here, but other spots where there are easements. Again, their nature, property lines quickly extends for that nice vehicle. They're gonna be happy that there's not other uses going on behind many of them.
Right.
But that then invites them to decide their yards need to be. So we've had many conservation easement upland buffer areas in the past where they're kind of back and remote. We find all kinds of nice yard pictures. And tents and you name it, so.
It's not that we're not going to have, it's not fence or no fence, it's what type of fence. There's like split rail, chain link, there's all kinds of different options, but we want to make it as
natural,
yes,
wildlife friendly, all of those things are important. Again, it's just years of being around here, we've seen all kinds of stuff. So those others where you limit the fencing and it's not a regular fence, well, because they are afraid of the very first snake they see, and you name it any other thing, then they create their own fencing. So it's still not good because they're doing what they want to do because they're adjacent to it. So it's a challenge.
This is a typical situation where we're trying to maintain passive wildlife.
Right. It's a sensitive, it's gonna be a sensitive issue. I don't think anyone has to say that. Someone who's never had a fence and has had view sheds onto a golf course is not going to want to see a chain link fence. And I know we're talking about other types of fence, but that's gonna be potentially a sensitive issue with your abutting neighbors.
And I wanna mention too, the public outreach again that Sean brought up, with the Clomar, you're required to do a public notice, it's changing the map. And when we update our watershed management plans, we always do a public meeting. And this is not just, you're kind of moving a pond around on one little parcel. This is, a big piece of a watershed plan. So I suspect that Rob and his team are gonna do a public meeting on the map change, like we did to Bay Point, Bay Point Golf Course, we're repurposing into a stormwater pond, stormwater treatment park. So I suspect we'll need to do a public meeting on this one too, once that revised existing and proposed conditions models come in.
That would be something you guys would do on your own? Is that right?
I'll have to talk to Rob, because the Bay Point, Rob oversees the watershed management plans over environmental. The Bay Point one is a capital project, so we did that one, but with this one being private, I don't know how we would work that out. I'll need to ask about that.
I need to jump in. I realize it's a rewind, and these chairs are about as comfortable as Spirit Airlines flights. But going back to the upland pine area that is contemplated for future residential development, and Katie posed a question specifically to myself and Kevin about how that can be transitioned to residential in the future without doing it now and putting forth in the site plan. I just wanted that clarification from staff as to what that process would look like, because by the time I took the question at the time it was chatted about, it was about 22 seconds. So, if I would maybe delve into that a little bit more.
So the land uses that are out there, so the whole property is, and the whole area is RPDs as part of the master plan. So with the requirements in the master plan, and usually density of areas are designated and shown for certain tracts. So when if there's density in a tract that's not being used and wants to be moved to potentially another area, would require a master plan amendment, which goes through our public hearing process through the Board of County Commissioners. And currently with that, if there is a land use change, which you have recreation, open space, preservation, other residential designations out there, that would have to occur as well. So you'd have a future land use map amendment and a development master plan modification that would run at the same time, both go through the county commission. Future land use, if approved by the county commission, would have to go through the county line process with that. Now that you don't have to build anything right away, that would modify the master plan, and if all approved, would then set the new areas and where density could be. It's transferred now in this tract, and new areas of residential, preservation, open space, however it gets designated.
But given all the transfers and everything, assuming staff and support, that would require public hearings to develop on that. That forest plan at the moment. Okay, well, I do that.
And the preservation map adjustment, if the goal is to do the residential, if that's contemplated of moving that density around and putting out areas as residential, it might be beneficial to then hold off on those preservation changes and do it all as part of that at the same time through one map amendment.
That would be my expectation, to do it all at once. Kind of post-construction, this is as-built, these are the new preservation areas, these are the new residential areas, this is where it's all.
Yeah, just run everything through the map amendment process instead of a separate adjustment and amendment. So.
Is there anything else?
Anyone online have any other questions or comments? Okay, all right, with that, we'll conclude. We will follow up. It is recorded, so you'll get an email, you can log into Acela and download the recording, and it'll be a few days, but we will get that email, okay? And they'll also provide some notes.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We know this was extra long this morning, but it's also a nuanced and complicated project, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
I think you already said.
You've already done that.